Hello everyone on the internet, and thanks for tuning in.
And welcome to another episode with me, Master Rider Bushido, and with my Toku Bro, Flayvaman!
Sword form!
I have nothing to say apart from that was rubbish. And what my Toku Bro tried to attempt was the, default sword weapon form of today's episode, which will be Master Rider Den-O, or
Man,
Kamen
why are
Rider
you calling
Den-O.
it Master Rider? Are you American? It's Kamen Rider.
Okay, Kamen Rider Den-O then.
Kamen Rider. That's for another episode. Anyway. Kamen Rider Den-O.
Starting off with the build-up and such, what did you think of it?
Oh my goodness. This was the first Kamen Rider I watched from... Well, it's the first Kamen Rider I watched. It's the first... and it's going to include Saban's Master Rider. Kamen Rider Den-O was the first Kamen Rider I watched. And, from beginning to end, overall, let alone beginning to end. So, I had a lot of expectations, and I felt it didn't disappoint. I absolutely enjoyed it. I had no idea... unlike where I normally say, what did you know of such and such before you watch it, before the first episode. This one, all I knew is Kamen Rider, motorbike. That's pretty much it. But otherwise, I had no idea what it was about. Just started watching it from Ep 1, about a year or two after its broadcast. Absolutely loved it.
In my opinion, when I just start watching the intro and stuff, which, by the way, for the record, it's one of the best Kamen Rider openings that's so, cheerful, joyful. I love it.
They were jumping around, climax jump.
Yeah, that one. Basically, it just screams like time machine plus train plus... I don't know, just a whole lot of other things, really. But then at the same time, it's more involved than you think. That's why I don't know whether I lost to it because of that.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But the song was good, and I'll say that, obviously it kind of had the very quirky vibe that the song, that the intro did. And, it was a very quirky series from the off. The thing
is, it could, but then, in my opinion, I don't even remember the storyline. That's why I'm like... for me... Oh, go on, carry on. I was going to say, was the story that long / boring / convoluted that I don't remember any of it?
I don't think so. Alright, I'll say it was long, but it wasn't that difficult to follow. Obviously... the problem with Den-O, and the problem with us covering Den-O, is they released like 1 million films for it, from its success. And again, I could see why it was successful. The only thing is that, even though we're covering it today, I'm only going to be able to cover what I've watched. I can't list what I haven't watched, basically, because that's just going to be a long list. But, obviously I have seen the series. I have seen, what was broadcasted on the television. And, I absolutely loved it. You talked about the intro theme just now. You're saying you're blanking out on the story. Well, for me personally, and again, this is going to be sort of like from this perspective of it being my first Kamen Rider, its storyline was out of this world. It was quite weird, it was quite strange. I wasn't quite familiar, like the whole go back and, basically it plays around with this time-space continuum, really.
Because for the viewers, without giving too much away or without giving spoilers, how can you sum up the story or give a slight summary of the story?
Without being a spoiler, it's ghosts. Actually, it is a bit of a spoiler. Spoiler. It's basically like spirits / ghosts going around. Sussing out people's wishes and dreams, and then using it against them. And Kamen Rider turns up, goes back in time to save them from the dream that they were about to have crushed by the ghosts themselves. Yeah.
Almost like a wizard thing, except
it does have right. Basically, if you look at how Kiba uses the time, you look at how Wizard uses the sort of going into someone's subconscious or conscious dream. Yeah. It's kind of like that. You know, basically when they did, because those series were later, it's basically those elements in one show, and with a few other bits and bobs. Yeah.
Right. So
and that's I'll be honest. That is actually a bad description, but you're trying to minimizing the spoilers. That's pretty much it.
Fair enough. Now, touching on with the characters, I have to admit this is probably the most flamboyant amount of characters I've ever seen in any series. Like the most standout.
I love Momotaro's. The red one. Yeah.
Yeah, Momotaro's. Yeah. Basically, each one being the sort of spirit / monsters that somewhat get rejected and become their own forms, and then can create or merge with Den-O to make their new form, or like gun form, or rod form, or gun form, or axe form even. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's just each one has their own characters, and it's probably the first time
the fact that it was played with the same actor was absolutely brilliant. Again, I just didn't... I might have seen... When I say the same actor, I mean, it was Den-O. What was his name? Ryutaro, I think his name was. Yeah. It's him being embodied by, Momotaros.
No, but then...
Yeah.
No, but the fact that guy has to somehow adapt to four different personalities, it's just ridiculous.
Well, I think personally, when it comes to the Imagines again, how I found the actor quite versatile, and that's how he went on to star in Rurouni Kenshin, I assume, because again, he is a good actor, and I kind of felt that, it being my first Kamen Rider, that, it was definitely a good intro to the series, and it demonstrated how versatile the story can be, because where Super Sentai is very sort of... they're both children's shows at the end of the day, but where sort of Sentai is very formulaic, Kamen Rider had a mixture of light, it had a mixture of dark, it had a mixture of quirky, it had a mixture of serious, it had sci-fi, it also, you watch the films, it had a bit of periodic drama, and the fact that it's time travel, it's pretty much the world was literally their oyster in terms of writing a decent story, which I felt it was. I liked as well from after watching, you kind of got a vibe of what was a typical Kamen Rider setting. The fact that Ryutaro had, him and his sister were in the cafe, that obviously is a staple of Kamen Rider. I obviously didn't know this at the time, but I liked, just sort of not knowing what staples of Kamen Rider were and weren't, apart from the motorbike, obviously. I'll find that, the setting of the cafe was very sort of quirky, and, the whole mystery behind Ryutaro's sister's husband was very sort of quite cool. And obviously, massive spoiler alert, where Yuto, his name's Yuto, comes in, and, you see him as Zero Form, and it was his younger version, it was his younger self, being the Kamen Rider, whereas his present-day self, who's mysteriously no longer at the cafe with Ryutaro's sister, is some timekeeping dude. I thought that was, there was so many clever twists, one after the other.
But then there's also a bit of another spoiler, which I don't want to get into, but when Zeranos uses, or when Yuto when Zeranos uses his...
cards.
The red cards, I was going to be specific. Though I don't want to say, but I'm thinking, you know what I'm on about, that when he uses that, now that I remember what it does, that I thought was a big, like, jaw drop, kind of like, wait, what are you doing kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, again, I think it kind of it's quite, even though it's still a children's show, it balanced the whole sort of mature theme of, what, does he, doesn't he? And, bearing in mind that Yuto was quite an immature character. I also liked his Imagine, Den-O. He was like the whole mothering sort of chasing after him with, trying to make friends with people with a basket of candy. I thought that was like quite comical.
Did you feel that Yuto and Den-O had sort of like a similar chemistry from Go Busters, Jin and BJ Stagg?
No. Maybe Ryuji and Gorisaki Banana in a sort of motherly sense.
Okay, that way. Got
it.
Though otherwise, how can I say? Now, going into more, if you want, in depth of the characters individually, just to tick them off, really, because...
okay.
What did you think of each Imagine alone? Because each of them had a very...
I actually liked the main four. I can't really remember the others, but I liked each four for different reasons. I mean, maybe... Even though Momotaros was the main Imagine and was probably the one that's more recognised, etc., I kind of liked his sort of like angry persona, but he was still, again, I kind of didn't feel him as much as the other three. I mean, out of the main four, I'd probably rate the gun form. He was actually called Ryutaros. I rated gun form the best. Apart from the fact that I like the colour purple. I like the sort of cheeky vibe he was giving off, and the whole dancing thing that he was all about. Eurataros, I liked how suave he was. Well, the ironic thing was, that was sort of like how they ended up portraying Eurataros, and when Eurataros was inside Ryutaro. In terms of rod form, and obviously he was a turtle, I was a bit like, not too sure. But I liked his catchphrase, translated into English as, "Can I reel you in?" I thought that, again, that was all part of the suave persona. Watching one of the interviews for Den-O in general, they talked about how, the inspiration behind the mannerisms for the Eurataros character was actually just to act a little camp. And I think Axe Form, I can't remember the name, I think it was Kintaros. Actually, I do remember it's Kintaros. Kintaros was, I don't know, his character there wasn't anything about his character, but I like the fact that he was just like, he was like the strong character, and then he'd just keep falling asleep, for the comic relief. I kind of like that. I'm trying to remember the other ones, though. I mean, Den-O was
the White
funny.
Bird.
Yeah, the Prince. Again, that was only in a couple of episodes. Not enough. I don't think, even if that character did have more episodes, it wouldn't have done anything for the character. The character had enough episodes. It was pretty cool, quite suave again. But, nothing majorly noteworthy. In my opinion, anyway.
For Den-O?
Den-O, again, I liked his sort of like comical, sort of chasing after Yuto vibe. He looked a bit meh. He looked a bit strange. I think that was deliberate. But, can't fault the form. Zero form and the red version was also quite cool.
And lastly, if you have seen the movie, just to add this one, Teddy!
I have seen the movie, but I can't remember anything about it. Right, I remember what it was about. I remember there was a movie exclusive form. I just can't remember.
That's the Next Generation one.
Yeah, I do remember, because that was the one that was like kind of set in a period drama, wasn't it? Like in a sort of warring, again, another Sengoku era, if you will.
With Teddy!
I'm trying to remember. I remember looking at the form. I do remember looking at the form, though. Hmm.
Well, this is the thing. Okay, we'll get to that later on. But anyway, now, what did you think of the outfits of each form, each rider outfits, and so on and so forth?
Well, there was very little in it. It was mainly more about the colours, wasn't it? And the weapons, right? Whereas, I think, even though you ask a question like that, I'll probably say I liked how each one looked different on Ryutaro, like, Civi, if you will. Like, Momotaros, again, can't really distinguish. Again, Eurotaros, he was wearing the glasses, he had the flick back hair, he had, like, the nice shirt on. With Kintaro, again, it just sounds like I'm listing it now. Whereas Kintaros, obviously, he was like the dojo guy. He was in his gi. Some sort of strong, sort of stereotypical martial art character. But again, as I said, the gun form Ryutaros. I like the sort of dashed paint look. He had like the sort of almost like a train driver cap and. Just sort of like the very sort of dancey persona, let alone the look. The look and the persona went hand in hand. So yeah, I really like that.
Alright, so touching on then, in which case, after outfits and such, with the arsenal of Den-O,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a very, very, I have to say, unique.
It's hard for me to say unique because, again, it being the first Kamen Rider, and again, I think I'm just going to use that as an excuse. I look at how the subsequent Kamen Riders I watched were. I wouldn't necessarily call them that unique. I still like the looks. I mean, again, even touching on what you were asking about the armor, like I liked, the old, the last form of Den-O where he had all four faces on a shield or something. Well, it was like the Denshigiri. I remember that. I used to laugh at that so hard. Massive nerd. I will say that I liked how it looked. The sort of flared look around the helmet. Whereas, coming to weapons and even the way that each one looked. The weapons were a bit, where I was sort of like quite, where I was very familiar with Sentai and Power Rangers. Seeing one weapon for each form wasn't really a new thing to me. So, but it was still quite cool. It was still like quite suave. I think it suited each character, with the exception of Eurotaros having a rod. I was like, it fits the character, but it doesn't really serve a purpose in battle. I felt.
It actually does.
I'm not saying it didn't, but I just felt they could have picked a better weapon.
That's because you don't know the benefits of a big long staff, because I do.
Oh yeah, right, but that's the point. It wasn't as a staff. He was using it like he was almost like using it for a shield. It'd generate the shield. He would also, he basically used it like a fishing rod as well. I mean, if he was using it like a bow, like a Donatello style bow, that would make a bit more sense. But I didn't feel he was using it like that as much as he could have done, or they might as well have just given him a bow, basically.
Otherwise, no. What I meant by the arsenal and that it was unique is like it's the only one I can think of the top of my head that's like a 4-piece weapon that can turn into 4 different weapons that we've not had such a... like for instance, because it breaks up into 4 pieces, like if you put them all along each other, you get this a bow staff, basically. Otherwise, if you, put them like 2 in the middle and both on each end, you get the sword form, for instance, and the axe form was... it's like, it has its own ability.
I did like axe form, though, I will say that. So, what were the other weapons, though, apart from the main 4? Because, again, I can't even remember what that white bird form was. I can't even remember what it was called. No,
I don't even remember. I mean, there's something that, our fans could, do type below. But otherwise, Deneb, you get, his finger guns on his shoulder, but then otherwise, he also gets... In an alternate form, he transforms into a double-barreled minigun thing.
Yeah, I remember that actually. I'll be honest, it has. I mean, this is really bad for us reviewing this because it's been several years since I watched this. But yeah, no, even I remember that, and I thought that was quite cool for Den-O actually.
Although I actually prefer, as much as that looked cool, I still prefer Teddy from the Next Generation movie / mini movie series.
Oh, you're talking about
the big blue sword.
Was it Shin Den-O or
Shin
Den-O? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Of course, then we haven't covered movies yet, and again I've only seen.
But we're just touching on Arsenals here, so
yeah,
I'm just
okay. I mean, sure. What did you make? I mean, this is it, because even though
the belt, what do you think of the belt?
I love the belt. I love the belt. I love the what? I mean, because you got your generic Kamen Rider Den-O, which is just grey and black. And with every form that he whipped out, and sword form, you just see like this magic transformation, to whatever colour with whatever form, whatever look. I mean, you look at the Eurotalis form, the rod form.
It's like the changing trains, like Tokujo when they change forms.
I wouldn't. You know what? I never looked at it like that. Now that Tokujo's obviously coming to an end at the moment. I'll say that, I'll actually say that, you could see it like that, or I'll be honest, at the time of watching, I wouldn't have seen it like that, I'd have just been like, oh.
No, as an analogy for others, for our current.
I guess. But again, at the time of watching, I probably wouldn't have made that sort of connection.
You'd see it as
I'm saying, I was just saying, like, in general, like, I like the belt.
And don't forget the pass.
Yeah, obviously they had the pass as well. I'm just going to say that, I never made that sort of connection, and, there are, when you look at, if you're going to look at Tokujo, which came several years later, there are a lot of comparisons to do. I mean, obviously everyone's like, oh, they're just ripping off Den-O, which is Den-O we're talking about. I'll say that, there was a lot of good themes going through it. I mean, I guess we're sort of going a little off topic here. But, like looking at Owner, sort of like his very quirky persona. And then you've got, I think her name was Naomi, the train hostess. Yeah, I mean, again, everyone makes that comparison between Wagon on Tokuja and Naomi from Den-O. It's all very quirky, feminist, sort of crazy, well, not feminist, feminine. Traits, which I think, I've been on the trains in Japan, I never saw any of that, so...
Did you?
Did I what? No, I didn't.
Go on a train?
I went on a train over there, yeah. I even went on the Shinkansen, man. Yeah.
Anywho. But no,
I'll tell you what though, a little off topic from Kamen Rider. I was with my friend Takahiro. We were on the train, and we were on the Shinkansen for the first time. It was my first time on it, and he's Japanese obviously. And he goes to me, what do you think of the Shinkansen? And I just looked out the window. I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's really fast, isn't it? And he was just like, oh my goodness. I'm like, well, I don't know what you expected from me. Anyway, so coming back to Den-O, I like...
Anyway, hang on, but just as also, what I was hoping you'd suss out when I was mentioning about the ticket thing is that, they used a, sort of like a reader system, like you have the belt and then you have the ticket to swipe amongst the belt.
And like he'd pick it down and then just throw it away, like you'd throw away a train ticket, so yeah, of course.
And then each had their own style, but that is correct. But rather than Tokuja, and I'm going to make another analogy, rather than them using their tickets as also phones as well for some unknown reason, this one, they literally used it as a transforming reader as well, which I thought was rather clever.
Sure. Yeah, I actually agree, because it was
versatile.
even when you sort of like look at the older Kamen Riders, it's kind of like, it gives it a fresher look. You could even say it was sort of like The way,
Next gen.
the way they sort of, way you look at the later Kamen Riders and even the Neo Heisei, it's sort of like it almost set the precedent, if you will.
You mean having like a digitized style?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll give you that. No, I'll give you that one. Because I'd say from Den-O, the only one closest to such style to date at the moment would actually be Wizard, but then we'll get to that.
Okay. What did you think of the fact that even though they weren't riding bikes around in the series, the fact that the trains were controlled by motorbikes?
I thought that was interesting. However, I did not like the appearance of the Den Bird.
To be honest, I liked the appearance of Zero's bike.
I don't remember it for the life
but
of me,
I vaguely remember it. It did look good, but I kind of felt
I didn't like Den-O's bike. I'm sorry, I didn't like it. It was just so
it was
white.
a bit weird because even when they did Kamen Rider Taisen, the third Taisen film, they basically sort of they shoehorned that in. Like, they just had Den-O sword form riding the bike in the Den-O train. What did you think of the various transformations that the Den-O train did?
See, this is weird for me, the fact that when normally, in a lot of the, Kamen Riders, that you get the monsters of the week turning into big sort of building-sized monsters. To deal with that... One second. To deal with that, like... I'm gonna use an example. Like, for instance, Kiva had the castle, the dragon castle, which kind of made sense-ish. Whereas this one, in Den-O, had a train that can pretty much makes its own tracks off gravity. At the same time, had additional carriages with its own arsenal of stuff that I thought was like, okay. Like, you had one, had one which was like a dragon's head. You had one which turned out to be like a spider.
But what did you make in general? I mean, sort of the way that it was. Yeah, not just that. But I personally felt, sort of coming away from the train itself, but the actual monsters were all generic and, like, reoccurring. So, like, it didn't matter what the...
No. I think for me, no monster stood out because I felt that the story was so... I don't even remember any of it, to be honest. For me, I think the characters themselves stood out so much that I don't even remember anything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
To be polite. In regards to the trains alone, I'd say that's just a merchandise shoehorn in kind of thing.
I'm not really sure if it was a merchant. Yeah, I'm not even sure if that was part of the merchandise. To be fair.
No, but in short, I don't think I see one hand that it's like a Sentai thing that because they got a new form, let's add another form to the train. But I did not think it was necessary to have all these weird random appearance of a new carriage. That's just me.
Okay, I understand you.
And then, unless if I'm missing anything else, do you want to touch on any movies that you've seen?
Alright, I mean, let's see, what other... Alright, so two themes I'm going to touch on before we cover the films. What did you make of the choreography during Den-O? Meh.
I thought the script and the way that the main five, and I'm going to say five as in the 4 Imagines and the main actor, the way that they played their role, as far as I can remember, was good. But only as far as I can remember.
It
and
was
this,
good. Well, I liked how it was...
And their chemistries.
Yeah, chemistry, well, it's sort of like it was an anti-chemistry, if you will. Because, again, they had, like, their sort of clashing personalities. And
well, that's the point.
But, yeah, it absolutely was the point. It made great comedy. It also made great action sequences. That was my point.
Yeah.
You look at... But then at the same time, as they possessed Ryutaro, I'll say that, you could distinguish, even if they were all black, for example, that they, even if they were all black, for example, you could still tell which one was which. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, that's true that each one had their own persona, characters, and so on and so forth, and with their own past history and whatever, and I loved it. I'm not going to deny that, but I thought it was only I didn't see much in the acting, in the action, in the effects and such. I thought they were way over. But for the script and the banter and the anti-chemistry, let's go with you on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was good.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and then the last, and I think I did touch on this earlier, but just go over it one more time. What did you think of the locations used in Den-O?
I don't even remember to save my life.
Okay, I'll say in the early episodes you had like the sort of typical underpass where like Ryutaro was picked on and stuff, and he had bullies chasing after him. That was, again, being new to Kamen Rider, it all looked quite swish, even though it was quite a dark storyline. Obviously you got the cafe, you got the train itself, simple enough.
I was going to say the train was unique.
Okay.
The train was unique.
I felt the train was simple, the train was a train.
That's my point.
I'll say that the Zero train looked cool on the outside and in. Yep. I'll also say, like, specifically that Prince Imagine, the white Imagine, had his own, like, unique sort of throne room. That was quite funny, I thought.
And then what happens when you go into the throne room? White feathers.
Yeah, I'd like that. I thought that was quite swish. I'll also say, let me think, like, because he didn't really have a head honcho, but whenever an Imagine possessed, completed the contract, as you will, sort of the way that the person's past was imagined, if you will, it kind of had that really cool sepia-ish look. I mean, I'm not a photography expert or nothing, but not quite sepia, but just sort of like the whole washed effect. I like that. Just like I'm talking like a graphic perspective here. Just like Wizard had like the cracks going down everywhere and that. Like that basically. And let me think. There was one or two other places. Like right at the end, you had the again. I think they sort of employed this in Tokyo quite early on. The train terminal. That looked pretty cool, in my opinion. And, it was the first time I'd seen anything like it, so I thought, it looks cool. And that's me wrapping up the locations. What about you? Anything in particular for you?
Not just, I remember the cafe, which was...
Again, anyone who's familiar, anyone who's not watching Kamen Rider for the first time would be like, oh, another cafe, I guess.
True, but either way, I think that cafe was nice. I thought the train was unique, simple, like you said. I thought it was good. Otherwise, everything else was a bit meh.
Okay. Sure, man. Alright, right. Now, the movies, again, I'll probably say I'll watch the first one. Like, I watched them all a year apart, so it's quite bad. And, I think I ended on Saraba, to be fair. So I haven't seen... I don't know, because there was Shin Kamen Rider, and then there was Cho Den-O.
Hang on.
I'm
Let me see if I
so
can
I'm
get this
confusing
right.
myself basically on that.
One moment, because you've got... No, I've got to guess right now.
No, there's Shin Den-O and there's Cho Den-O, but I can't remember which one was which doesn't really help.
Which one's Ryutaro's grandson?
Ooh,
With Teddy. That's
think,
Cho, isn't it?
I'm lost because again, if I stick to the main three that I watched, I can't even remember what the second one was.
But, no, hang on. But then, no. Apart from Shin and Cho Den-O, they also did a trio of movies.
They did a trio of films: Episode Red, Episode Yellow, and Episode Blue.
Yeah,
I've not seen those, which is really bad considering we're reviewing this. I guess I can cover it once I've watched them. LOL.
Well, I think for the amount of movies that they've done, which is like
A badillion.
their own one, the crossover one with Kiba, the
They did
next
a
gen,
sequel, and then they did a Sarabar. Then they did Kamen Rider Den-O Sarabar. That was... I remember... Oh, let me think. It introduced the Kamen Rider that became the episode Yellow, episode Red, episode Blue, or was it Green? Anyway, that was the one that introduced that rider, and then that rider went on to have his trilogy of films, which I think was supposed to be Ryutaro's grandson, I think. Anyway, so rather than just sounding like we don't know what we're talking about, let's talk about something we know where we're talking about. What do you remember of the first Den-O film?
nothing.
Brilliant. I liked the setting. I kind of thought the whole kiddie thing was a bit quirky. Obviously, you kind of see that is quite a reoccurring theme, but having like a miniature Momotaro, sword form Den-O was quite adorable, right? But then, the whole sort, I don't know whether it was Sengoku or Edo or, just sort of an ancient Japan look. Well, not ancient, but a sort of old style Japan look. I really liked that. And, sort of the way that, the sets were really nice on it. The story, I'll be totally honest, I don't remember the story, but I remember liking it. I mean, in general, I also liked the way, and again, my memory on this is very vague, how the series would employ hints for the movie. Like they were taking away they were taking away the Ryutaro from each different times. Like, oh, we've got to go. It's so like, where's he going? And then at some point in the series, it's like, if you want to know where they've gone, watch the flaming film. And that's when people watch the film and they'll see all these different Den-Os turn up. Spoiler alert, oops. Yeah, so I like that. I kind of thought, that's quite a nice little tie-in they did,
I mean, now that you mention it, I do remember seeing the whole, army of Den-Os in all the forms, in their own individual, all the forms, including Den-O in liner form, which I thought was, okay, this is badass, having all 6 of the whatever of them, just, basically. Which I thought was badass. Like, nothing like that.
I mean, that hits the merchandising perspective really well.
Agreed. And I have not seen anything like that since either a Sentai Clash or a Rider War.
A Rider War. Okay.
Other than Gaim, I've not seen anything like that amount of forms since, I don't know, Ryuki Gaim or like...
But bearing in mind, it was only 2 riders. That's the cool thing about it.
True.
But
I think, either way.
I mean, Ryuki did get its criticisms, but, it got a lot of praise, whereas Gaim simply got ripped on for trying to be Ryuki.
Yeah, agreed. But we'll get to that once we get to that. But anyway.
Anyway,
so, final thoughts.
Yes. Actually, I'm sure there was more. I mean, again, Den-O's just so expansive.
Okay. Okay.
was- I'm trying
While you're thinking on that one, my final thought on it is, unfortunately, A, because it was so long ago, and B, at the time when I watched it, I honestly don't remember like 3/4 of any of it, to be honest, unfortunately. What I do remember, however, are the good stuff, which is that of the characteristics of the main imagines and the main characters and how they were so prominent. And no one was like a scene or show stealer, if anything. They all balanced in their own way, even if Momotaro's felt like, and I will say felt like, a scene stealer or camera stealer.
But he was like the main form, if you will.
No, true. But even still, it
balanced.
worked. It
Yeah,
balanced. They all balanced in their own way. As far as everyone else, the owner was funny in his own way. Naomi wasn't that too... how can I say? Too... what's the word? She was toned down to the right level, let's put it that way.
Okay.
For appropriateness, let's put it that way.
Easy boy. Yeah, carry on.
Anyway, otherwise, that's all I can remember in regards to that. Unfortunately, I wish I could remember more of it. But can I recommend it? I'd say if you either...
I definitely would, you know that.
No, hang on a minute. I'd say if you'd like that kind of time travel thing, if you like Cuba, and if you are a hardcore Rider fan, then yes, I would say yes on that one. But
I'd
that's
probably
me.
say the opposite. I'd probably say if you're looking, not hardcore, if you're starting to get into Kamen Rider, at the end of the day, it was the most popular Kamen Rider for a reason. For me, it was purely coincidental that just happened to be my first Kamen Rider, because Kiba was
That's
just
like
coming
saying-
to an end.
No, but Kiba was my first.
Right, sure. Whereas for me, like at the time, Kiba was just coming to an end. I watched Den-O, I then watched Kiba, and then I watched a bit of Decade before I then decided to watch Kabuto. So so again, it was purely coincidental that it ended up being my first Kamen Rider. I'd recommend it to anyone as the first Kamen Rider. It was the most popular Kamen Rider for a reason. At the same time, just to touch on it, if you saw it, the Imagine anime, that was a bit quirky. It was a bit weird. I thought it was a bit fun.
It is true.
Anyone could have done it on Microsoft Paint, and I think a lot of spin-offs, like the SIC saga, did a lot of work with Den-O. It's it's a good series, and I kind of think that even the end of the series wasn't the end of Den-O, which is always, you could literally carry on Den-O forever, really. Den-O forever, motherfuckers, So,
Fair enough. But no, at the end of the day, you'd recommend it.
Defo. Den-O.
Fair enough.
Alright.
So, leaving on that very sour note, unfortunately, yeah. Well, thank you again, and tune us next time. And I've been Master Rider Bushido, and he behind the camera has been Flayvaman. And as always, join us next time, and fist to the cam!
Fist for the cam. See you next time.